Welcome to Fight Back Radio, a production of FightBackNews.com, taking you to the heart of the people's struggles. I'm your host, Richard Berg, and frankly, I'm very pumped up. This is our first episode, and we're trying to do something special here, I think, and I hope you enjoy what we're trying to do, and I hope that you'll subscribe to Fight Back Radio. Our idea here is to give a working class perspective to the people's movements. So what does that mean? That means we're going to bring in here people that are not academics, although we may do that once in a while, but mostly people from the struggle, people who are leading the struggle on the streets, whether it's in the labor movement, the black liberation movement, anti-imperialist movements, environmental, whatever it is. We're going to bring people in here. We want to talk to them and really, get to the heart of the matter and to talk about strategy, tactics, history, basically show you what's behind each of these movements from the people that are really in them and are leading them and organizing around them. We want to expose our enemies and we want to lift up our leaders. So basically that's what we're trying to do here, is to bring to you the fight for democracy, freedom, the fight for socialism, the fight for working class equality in this country. But besides just that, we also want to try to bring you some of the beauty and to investigate some of the romance of the people's struggles and what's really behind all this, the fight between the very rich and those of us who are struggling on a day-to-day basis. We're releasing this episode on May 1st, which means it's May Day, International Workers' Day. So I want to start out by wishing everybody here a happy International Workers' Day. Hopefully you've had a chance to go to some of the events in your city or go into a march or whatever people do on May Day. If nothing else, at least lift your glass and toast the working class on this International Workers' Day, which was founded in this country, in the city that I'm living in right now, Chicago, Illinois. With this, I know Fight Back also has issued a special print edition, which hopefully you've had a chance to read and to look at. We're also, Fight Back has been circulating through its print edition and online a statement by the Freedom Road Socialist Organization that kind of does a recap of what's happened the last year in the working class and a little bit of a look ahead. And so I'd encourage you to look at that. We're going to copy it in the show notes so you can look at it there if you wish. But it's important on May Day to take stock. It's kind of like our New Year's, and to take stock and to say, hey, what's going on in the workers' movement, and let's celebrate what's been good and what we've accomplished over the last year. And this year, after hopefully coming out of a very serious pandemic, I think the richest people in this country have exposed themselves that they care more about money than about our health or about anything else. And everything's been meant to turn a profit. And we've been, many of our people have been suffering, and many of them have been dying. Our families have been stressed. And so it's time that we take stock of this, we organize it, and we fight back. And that's what Fight Back Radio is really all about. On this May Day, before this, I should say this too. This is an abbreviated edition. I don't have a guest today. We're just kind of launching and introducing Fight Back Radio. In the future, we'll have guests on the show, and it'll last about an hour each time. We're going to come out every 2 weeks, so you can count on that. And we want people to subscribe to it. We want you to give us 5 stars, write a review. That'll help us boost up in Spotify, Apple, and YouTube. All those guys, so that people can find us much easier. So we want you to do that. But on this May Day also, I just want to take a minute to remember one of our great heroes from the past who probably more than anybody else, I think, is responsible for us remembering May Day. I know recently, I'll say the big marches in 2006 brought May Day back to the United States. But back originally, May Day started because of events in 1886. And there was a movement for the 8-hour day. And a dynamite stick went off here in Chicago at a rally. And after that, they used that as a pretext to round up the leaders of the labor movement, mostly immigrant workers, and they hung 4 of them. But the story of May Day was kept alive by the widow of one of those martyrs, a woman named Lucy Gonzalez Parsons. And I want to tell you a little bit about her today before we go off the air. Lucy Gonzalez Parsons was born in Texas. She was African American. She's also Mexican American, and she was had Native American blood as well. And she was born a slave. And frankly, we don't know a lot about her time as slavery or right after. But during the time of Reconstruction in Texas, she was a fierce fighter against the Ku Klux Klan and fighting for equality for all workers, for all people. There was a fella in Waco, Texas, named Albert Parsons, who became her husband. And mixed marriages were rough, even today, I suppose. But in Texas in the 19th century, they were very rough. And especially as the Klan started to gain the upper hand and Reconstruction was sold out, they had to flee Texas. And they came to Chicago. But they continued with their passion for justice and were leaders in the fight for working class equality. Lucy Parsons led hunger marches, organizing the poorest people and their families of children to march right to the doors of the rich people in Chicago and demand food and jobs and income. She organized textile workers, mainly women. She was so dangerous that at one time in Chicago, they passed a law about her that she couldn't speak in public. And she figured out that the workers used to take their lunch breaks on the banks of the Chicago River, and that the river itself wasn't technically part of the city. So she'd get on a barge or some sort of raft, and she'd go down the river and give her speech from there to the workers and try to organize them to stand together and to fight back. During the time of the Haymarket tragedy, when her husband and others were hung for their fight for the 8-hour day, she was treated poorly by the police and harassed constantly, but she kept an international movement alive that eventually was recognized as May Day, which is the day everywhere in the world people celebrate as Workers' Day. She also fought for new trials for her husband. After they were killed, she made sure that she founded the Pioneer Aid Society, which gave aid to the other martyrs and their families so that they could survive after their breadwinners had been killed by the police and by the state. She just did a fabulous job of speaking and propagandizing and really taking the word of the workers' movement out more broadly. I want to say also she was a founding member of the Industrial Workers of the World, which is a revolutionary union that was founded in 1905 that was sought to organize people, no matter if they're women, men, black, white, whatever, across industry lines instead of just organizing small sections of people being broken up by trades and things like that. And she was one of only 2 women delegates at the founding of the Industrial Workers of the World. The other was Mother Jones, who you may have heard of, and if you haven't, you should look her up because she's an important leader in our movement as well. But when Lucy Parsons was the only woman to address the Industrial Workers of the World from the podium at their founding convention, and she said that speaking about women, that they were the slaves of slaves, so that the workers were wage slaves and the women were slaves of slaves. And she called for to have a lower dues rate because of women had unpaid labor and how they were being treated. So this passion was throughout her life, and I encourage you to buy a book or look her up online, Lucy Gonzalez Parsons, and find out more about her. She should be taught. She should be a household name. Everybody should know her name and should be known in every school. But that's not the case, as is often true with many of our heroes. Anyways, thank you all and for coming to check out our teaser on Fight Back Radio. We're going to be back in 2 weeks on May 15th. I want to especially thank, before we go off the air, the production team who helped helped put this together and helped build our studio and helped, basically, come up with all the things that we need to do to set up a podcast. Vince Olson, Shane Tremblay, and Andy Koch were key to all of this. It couldn't have been done without them. If you want to reach Fight Back Radio, or if you want to reach me, we have an email address which you can find at it's richard.fightbackradio@gmail.com. That's richard.fightbackradio@gmail.com. And so you can, if you want to suggest people that should be guests on here, or how we should do this, or give me criticism and say how I can make this a better podcast, I'm happy to listen to you. And I also want to encourage people to check out the website of fightbacknews.org, where it's news and views of the people's struggles. And if you go there, you'll see stories about people actually, what it says, fighting back, looking at coverage of what's going on around the world, around our country, and people that are doing things like you, whether it's the Amazon workers, or people fighting against for climate change, or for community control of the police, or whatever it is. Fight Back News is there, and so I encourage you to look on our website and check that out. So then, until next time, I'm Richard Berg for the Fight Back Radio team. All power to the people.